Hello and welcome back to Hidden History. Today we're at the Frankenmuth Historical Association and we're taking a look at some really unique beer trays that I'm really excited to share with you today. These both represent two of the major breweries that operated here in Frankenmuth, and honestly they're a kind of works of art in and of themselves, so let's check them out. So what we have here is a beer tray from Carling Brewing and the Frankenmuth Brewery Corporation. Now I'm sure most of you are familiar with beer advertising like commercials and coasters and posters and things like that, but in the early 20th century and the late 19th century, beer trays were really common forms of advertisement, and as you can see, they're highly artistic. This one over here is from the Carling Brewing, which actually operated in Frankenmuth despite it being a Canadian brewery. And this one is all themed around the 9 pints of the law. Now you might wonder, what is that? Well, it's an advertising campaign that Carling did around these gentlemen here. Now the term 9 pints of the law is actually a play on possession is 9 points of the law, which nowadays normally you hear possession is 9/10 of the law, so it's a derivative of that. Now this illustration on here was done by Lawson Woods, and there's a bit of a mystery as to where it came from. There is a rumor that it was actually a photograph that was taken at the Carling Brewery in London, Ontario, and then he created this image from it. There's also theories that, you know, it was a stage, that it wasn't a candid. Some say it was a candid. There's all different kinds of theories. Being that I am from Ontario myself, I like to believe that it was a candid photo that was taken one day and turned into this work of art. Now you can see all these officers of the law sitting around and just kind of enjoying a pint, and it's really just quite a tableau. I mean, you have some officers drinking, this guy's wiping his eyes or maybe his brow. Maybe you heard a good joke. I've heard ones that have made me cry. This guy's smoking. This guy's got his helmet off. You can really spend all day just looking at this image, and I think it's so cool. Now, despite the fact that this tray specifically advertises the 9 pints of the law, it also does advertise the flagship beer from Carling, which was Black Label, which I'm sure a lot of you college kids will remember, and the Red Cap Ale, which at one point was even advertised by Lucille Ball. But overall, I think it's just a wonderful piece and there's so much detail into it. Moving over to this one, we have another beer tray from around the same time, but it's much different kind of in its approach. We actually don't know the specific date when this tray was made, but we have some clues on the artifact that'll give us some hints. So on the very top here, you can actually see that the president, the secretary and treasurer, and the vice president are named on this advertisement, which I think is really interesting. So since John Adam List is recognized as the president, we know that this tray is from around 1900 to 1922. So that gives us a little bit of a date. But again, too, you can just see the artistry that's done with this beer tray. It's really phenomenal. You got this kind of post-Greco-Roman woman with this lovely veil. And then you have all the floral arrangements around the side with these little cherubs kind of snuck in there when you look closely. And they have harps, they have different instruments, and it's just a beautiful piece. And of course, she's got this kind of Thousand Isle stare off into the distance. You kind of wonder, what is she thinking about? Both of these trays really represent a pretty important history in industry in Frankenmuth. Both of these represent the brewing industry, which provides so many jobs and experiences and culture to this town. And I think that's why I wanted to pull these out, because I think they're really interesting, but there's very unlikely a chance that we're going to put these on exhibit just because they don't really fit into a beer advertising exhibit that I think we do. But they're two of my favorite artifacts, and that's why I wanted to share them with you today. Now, the only reason we have these artifacts is because they were donated. These artifacts are part of the Greg Rummel and Keith Basnecker Breweriana collection. And that's a collection of over 700 artifacts that were donated to the museum. So if you have artifacts that you think are relevant to Frankenmuth history and culture, please contact the museum and we can see about getting them donated. Until next time, remember that history is worth preserving. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And make sure to click that bell icon to stay notified when we upload new content. Videos like this are only possible because of viewers like you. To help support this channel, click on the link in the description below. We'll see you next time.